Hi everyone, you know my love of looking up different retirement news and trends and then talking about them on this channel. Lately, everywhere I look, there's articles that talk about retirement and it keeps coming up. And it's not about the dream vacations or finally living the good life. It's actually articles that are more uncertain than that and a little bit more complicated. So I spent some time really delving into this and looking things up, and I thought it would be worthwhile discussing them on the channel as we always do. Hi, my name is Raina and this is Small Retired Life, and on my channel we talk about all things retirement, living our best life in our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s and beyond. So if you're new, welcome here. There are topics that seem to be coming up over and over again, and one of the most prevalent ones that I'm reading about is the fact that official retirement ages are moving up around different countries in the world. So we always think of a traditional age for retirement as being 65, and that's kind of been the accepted age and seems to have been pretty standard across developed countries around the world. Well, recently, in the past few years, there's countries that are slowly moving the retirement age closer to 70. An example I'm thinking of is Australia, where to claim I'm not sure what they call it, but superannuation or something like that, you have to be 67. And someone recently left a comment on one of my videos that I think it was in Holland or somewhere, where they have also moved the age up to 67 to claim some of the government pensions. So in Canada, it is still 65 to claim something like the Canada Pension Plan or the Old Age Security. But even with the CPP, you get penalized if you claim it earlier than 65, and you get rewarded if you wait to claim it after the age of 65, as that amount that you would receive per month increases for every year that you defer taking it. There's also been some grumblings around Canada about increasing the retirement age, and I'm not sure how serious this is or if this is going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if this gets a little bit more notice as the years go by. I think this is an active debate in many countries across the globe, and it's being taken seriously, and the reason is fairly simple. People are living longer, and the workers that are supporting retirees are decreasing. In other words, there will be less young people supporting government retirement plans for older people, as there are more and more people that are moving up in age. And we are a little bit healthier and we are living longer than perhaps our grandparents did. And so now we are also claiming these retirements for a longer period of time. And I think what's happening is governments are having a very difficult time funding this. So there are discussions about increasing the age of retirement, specifically for government pensions. I mean, there are people that have private pension plans through their employers, or they set up their own type of pension arrangements through RSPs and other types of financial instruments. And those are really up to the individual as to when they start claiming them. But specifically, some of the government pension schemes like CPP, or in the US, I think they have Social Security, and the superannuations in Australia, those are all partially government funded, and the governments are increasing the age that you can claim these at. So of course, this does make a significant impact on how someone will plan their retirement, because they may have to wait a little bit longer to collect that part of their pension funds or that part of what would normally fund their retirements. So I find that really interesting. Personally, I just believe the system is under pressure, and though this may not impact those of you who are currently retired and are already receiving pensions, it could potentially impact those that are heading into retirement, are not quite there yet, and I just think that this is a shift in the retirement sphere and something that people should pay attention to. All right, I have to be honest and say sometimes I have information overload in a day. Quite frankly, my brain gets a little bit tired, and it's those moments I need a little bit of a break. And what I like to do for fun and take just a moment of my day is to play an online game called June's Journey. I absolutely love that game. I think it's fun, and I'm happy to have June's Journey sponsor this portion of the video. June's Journey is a beautifully illustrated hidden object game that is set in the 1920s. The illustrations are absolutely stunning, which makes the game really fun to play. It follows an amateur detective. Her name is June Parker, and she solves all kinds of mysteries and crimes as you play the game. Each chapter that you complete takes you deeper and deeper into the game, and each chapter has different plots and different twists. As you progress through the different chapters and go deeper into the story, you have access to additional features and additional events. The concept of the game is to find some hidden clues and hidden objects in each chapter, which drives the story forward. It's really fun, and I personally find it rewarding to be able to find each and every hidden object perfectly in each chapter. My favorite part of this game is to decorate my own island. I've been playing this game for almost 2 years, so I think my island is looking pretty epic. Special and seasonal sets are available throughout the year to give your island a unique look. An example is my Christmas village, which I think is the coolest part of my island. You can play June's Journey on your iOS or your Android smartphone, tablet, or on your PC. It's fun to play and free to download. So follow the link in the description below this video, or you can scan the QR code on screen to get started with your own game. Thank you to June's Journey for sponsoring my video. So another major topic right now is the slow move away from guaranteed indexed pension plans to more of a system shifting towards an investment type of pension scheme. A lot of these types of programs involve the employee contributing a portion and the employer contributing a portion. And these plans are not indexed, meaning that they do not move up as the cost of living moves up. Indexed pensions always had this cost of living component to them where they increased every year if the consumer price index increased. These types of contribution plans do not have that. So you are either at the mercy of purchasing some kind of investment in some mutual funds that are being offered through these plans, or investing in stocks and bonds yourself and not having a professional pension manager managing these plans. Also, a lot of these new investment type pension contribution plans are not mandatory. So in other words, if an employee wants to opt out, they can. It's not unusual for a younger person to look at it and say, I can't afford to be putting in 4% of my paycheck into some pension thing. They're in their 20s. They're not even thinking about pensions. They should, but they're not. They're not contributing, and they don't have anything once they retire. The other thing that's a reality is that people change jobs a lot more often than our parents used to. People don't necessarily stay in their jobs for the rest of their life. So they're contributing to this plan, and sure, they get to take the money when they leave, but Are they going to invest that money into another plan? I don't know. So these plans are just not as stable as some of the old guaranteed pension plans were. And as a result, people are going into their 50s, 60s without having a meaningful amount of money saved up. The reality is, with the burden shifting to the individual to decide how their money is invested, sometimes this can be very overwhelming. This would be great if people were actually taught about investing when they're in high school, so that when they get out and they're in the workforce, they feel a little bit more confident in managing some of these plans. But that's just not the case. So often people are just really overwhelmed, and even if they do contribute to these plans, they'll shove their money into some mutual fund where the manager of that mutual fund is taking out a good chunk of change for managing it, which they're really not. They're following some index on a stock exchange, and your money is not doing what it could do if it was sitting in an indexed pension plan that's really actively being managed by a pension manager who knows what they're doing. I would say the next big topic that I always read about or hear about is the question, will my money last until the day I cease to be? That topic is so hard. I have had people ask me, how much do I need to have in my investment accounts in order to retire? And my answer always is, well, how much money do you spend each month? And that will decide how much money you need to have saved. The fact is, because we are healthier in most cases and are living longer, or we're living longer and we're not necessarily healthier, but there's drugs out there that allow us to live longer, there is a good potential that we could outlive our money. And it's really important to make sure that we really think about how much money we need for the duration of our retirement. It's not inconceivable that if you retire at the age of, let's say 60, I'll use 60 because it's a round number, and life expectancy now is that we're living well into our 80s and potentially into our 90s. Well, that is like 25 to 30 to 35 years that we need to make our money last. That is a lot of years. That's almost as many years as you were working. And so most people are finding they don't have enough money saved, and hence they are working into their later age, not because they necessarily want to, but because they have to. When I read about this topic, a lot of the articles focus on inflation rates, and inflation rates have gone up in the last few years. We all talk about how everything is more expensive. Food is more expensive, housing is more expensive, and everything is more expensive. And so even when we've saved what we think is enough money, if the inflation rate increases, our money may not go as far. So this is something where it's really hard for the average layperson, like most of us are, to really know what's going to happen in the future. There's definitely some benefit in chatting with someone who has some actuarial experience and can help you to figure out different scenarios. So for example, if you do retire at 60, what happens if I live 10 years or 15 years past that age, or 20 years or 25 years or 30 years? Looking at your family and longevity in your family, there's all kinds of scenarios that you could use to give yourself a better concept of perhaps how long you will be retired after the age you retire. These are all important questions, and when you start seeing them in news articles over and over again, then you know people are talking about them. Another question that comes up and that we see a lot of articles on, and even a lot of YouTube videos. I was browsing YouTube and there's a ton of people out there talking about personal finance, both Canada and in America and from other countries. So there's definitely a good spectrum of people to choose from and to listen to. I'm not sure I agree with all of them. Again, you have to be picky, but there are some knowledgeable people. And the question of when to take your pension is a big decision for people nowadays. So for example, I was mentioning how the CPP will reward people if they wait to take it in later years. You increase the percentage of your payments every single year. You put off taking your CPP after the age of 65. And so then it behooves us to really think about this, because as an example, Canada Pension Plan is an indexed pension. The amount that you receive incrementally moves up a little bit with the cost of living every year. So if you do not have any other pension that is indexed, and you simply have money in an investment account that you've saved up, and now you're following whatever rule your financial planner has given you as a guideline to take money out now that you're retired, Canada Pension Plan is indexed. It is your indexed pension. So if you can wait to take it, that might make sense. But then again, what if you have a high mortality rate in your family? What if the history of your family is that everyone passes away at the age of 75 or something like that? So then you're only taking the CPP for 10 years. Very morbid topic. But those are the kind of things that people are thinking about. Does it make sense to wait? Does it make sense to take it early and take a penalty? Does it make sense to just take it at 65 when you can start taking it at its full amount? So there are so many news articles on this topic. Of course, I can't tell you what to do because everyone is different. Everyone has different criteria and everyone has a different amount of money they have saved up. If you have a lot of money saved up, it might make sense to wait to take your CPP a little bit longer because you may not need the money right away. So there is just so much out there about this. It's actually quite astounding. All right, another big topic I've been reading a lot about recently is how the new technology of AI, artificial intelligence, will have an impact on people's retirement decisions. Now, hear me out on this one. AI is a huge tool. What used to take perhaps a team of people to achieve can now be done with the help of AI technology by perhaps one or two people. Not that AI replaces everything and everyone, but it does have an impact on certain jobs, will have an impact on hiring, and will also have an impact on retention. It's something that workers will need to learn, will need to embrace, and will need to adopt, whether they want to or not. It's a huge change in the workforce, and I'm going to bet it's going to impact almost everything out there. For many people who are in their 50s and 60s, there may be a point where they're either unwilling to work with the new technology, or they couldn't be bothered because there's so many changes and adaptations that will be involved with this type of shift. And they may say to themselves, you know what, I was going to work longer, but I'm not interested in this, so I am going to opt out now. Not everybody is going to do that. Not everybody can do that. The fact is, it could be harder for someone who's done a job or worked a career in a certain way to all of a sudden have this huge shift and do something different. It is harder, no matter how much someone wants to argue the fact, it's harder to adapt to these types of changes when you are older. Now, granted, there are people who are amazing and they love the change and they thrive in change, but not everybody. And so there's a ton of stuff being written about how you will see a shift in workplaces with people either coming into the workforce or getting out of the workforce because of AI. It's interesting to read some of this information. Can't say I agree with all of it, but some of it, yeah, like it makes sense. And the only reason I'm mentioning it is because this is something that's out there in the news more and more. It's something that will impact how we work, how long we work, what type of jobs are available, pretty much everything. Essentially, the message is adapt now or get out now. This type of technology can also help older folks stay in a job longer. Perhaps a job that used to be a lot more physical and took a lot more time, with the help of AI, may all of a sudden be a little bit easier or a little bit more accessible. So there could be the complete flip side of that, where someone's retirement decision will be based on the fact that they can work more easily, more comfortably by using some of these AI tools. So I guess what I'm saying is that this new technology, I think personally, is huge, and it will have an impact on the decisions that we make regarding our retirements. The last topic that I'm seeing a lot of is being called personal retirement, meaning that the shift into retirement is becoming so personal to each individual. There are still people out there who say retirement means you're no longer having to work. And I'm sorry, but that is just such an old-fashioned and outdated concept. I know there are people that still believe this, but it's not the way it is anymore. People retire in all kinds of ways. People stop working and never do any paid work again and are happy to do hobbies, gardening, travel, something that we consider more of the traditional retirement. There are people who retire because they have other ambitions. So in other words, they leave their jobs and they start a passion project. They want to start a new business. They want to go back to school. I know someone who was a geologist. She is now taking a fine arts degree. There are people that have interests that are beyond the scope of what they used to do, and they're retiring into something they are passionate about. There are people who absolutely love their jobs and they don't really ever want to retire, but they don't want to work the same way. And so they potentially are leaving their old jobs if there's no accommodations made for them, and working part-time or running their own little side consulting business, doing whatever it is that they did for someone else. There are just so many options in how we retire and how we live our retired life. It's super exciting. I love that. I just think that opportunity and doing something new, doing something different, or just hanging out and knitting is just so cool. And I personally am invigorated and excited by the autonomy to make that decision. And there are so many articles being written about the untraditional or non-traditional retirements. And also slowly there's books that are being written by people that talk about the more non-traditional path and retiring into something as opposed to just retiring. Everybody has a personal view on how they want their retirement to look, how they want it to be, what they're going to do in retirement. There really is no wrong answer, you know. It's really the freedom to choose. And I absolutely love that. So these are just a few of the things that I've been reading and seeing articles on. Maybe because I have a channel that focuses on retirement and lifestyle over the age of 50, this is a topic of interest. So I tend to notice these articles, but I always like to talk about what's trending and bring you in on what's trending for our chapter of life. All right, this is all for this week. Thank you again to June's Journey for sponsoring this video, and a reminder that you can download the game for free using the link in the description below this video or scanning the QR code on screen. Otherwise, I will see you all next week at my regular time. Bye!